he's had some sort of problem medically. He's collapsed. They're life-flighting him, and he's on life support. And I just kind of was, what? Wait a minute, we got all these unanswered questions. So I made the call immediately up to Ed and Lois. Lois answered the phone, and I just said, it looks like he's probably brain dead, and he's never going to be able to answer our questions. And Lois just says, oh my, and dropped the phone.
3 days later, Reese died.
He died less than 2 months after the kidnapping, but they were so sure that it was Richard Reese. In fact, when he died, they wouldn't even let his wife come and hug him after he died, because he was considered this horrible man who had kidnapped Elizabeth Smart.
After Richard Reese died, everybody would come to us and say, it's too bad, and I say, it's still active. And literally, people who I worked with for years, they'd put their arm on my shoulder and say, you really need to see somebody. I mean, they were really concerned that it was that you just can't give it up and everything. But, the fact that we had searched so much and hadn't found a body or found any evidence at all was also somewhat, somewhat reassuring. I mean, if we had found, something to show that she wasn't alive, we certainly would have felt differently. But no, we couldn't let it go. We were after it.
I couldn't be angry at God. I knew that God was not the one doing this. I knew he wasn't. I was angry at somebody's choice to take my daughter. I remember hearing people in the background, there's Ed Smart. How can you think that she's still out there?
I remember sitting in my office and opening the drawer and going through the baptisms, those who've been baptized, and seeing her name on it, and just starting to cry. And at that point, my mind said to me, I don't think she's alive. And then my heart said, well, I'm not going to lose hope. I can't lose hope. And I read this to the congregation. Verily I say unto you, my friends, fear not. Let your hearts be comforted. Yea, rejoice evermore, and in everything give thanks, waiting patiently on the Lord, for your prayers have entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth.
If there's a question at all, why should I be doubtful? I should be optimistic, because that's the best way to be. I thought about her a lot, and I thought about what I'd say to her when she came back. And I dreamed about it a lot. I always dreamt that she was there and I was coming to their house, and what I would say to her. And they were always good dreams. And then I'd wake up and I'd be disappointed.
The investigators were really frustrated. We had followed psychic leads, sexual predator leads, devil worshiper leads, white-collar extortion-type leads, motorcycle gang leads, internet predator leads. I mean, we had just chased down hundreds and hundreds of different theories and things, and yeah, people were discouraged.
I was mountain biking on a trail behind my house in July, about a month after the girl was taken. At about 10 o'clock in the morning, I was going up the trail, and I saw a man in the distance walking down the trail with two women behind him. They were wearing full gray robes. He had a very bushy beard. The two women had veiled faces with only their eyes showing.
I saw the man that our family calls Joseph walking from the sidewalk toward the street. He was staring straight ahead, walking quite rapidly, and at his side was a young girl dressed in similar clothing. I could see her eyes, and her eyes were quite sad.
My parents had come down to take my wife and myself and my kids out to a family-style restaurant, and sitting on a table that was just a few feet away from us was a man and a woman, and what I could identify then was a teenage girl.
They would stack up the vegetables on their plates, stack up the cucumbers, and I thought that they were probably eating a lot because they might not have regular meals.
The night Elizabeth was abducted, she was taken by her kidnapper at knife point, repeatedly told that she was evil, and threatened with the murder of her family if she tried to escape. Over time, her old identity was slowly erased. Her new name was Augustine. Disguised in a veil, she was seen following her abductor and his wife in and out of Salt Lake City. Dressed in white robes, the strange trio often walked along the canyon path which rose up behind her parents' home, just as she had done the night she was abducted. That first night, after being forced to climb for several hours, Elizabeth had eventually emerged into a heavily camouflaged hideaway. Here, her red pajamas were burnt, and she was taken by her kidnapper into his dugout, held down and raped. Abuse that would continue. Elizabeth was then shackled by a cable to a tree. Unable to shout out to the search parties, she could hear calling her name. She was still alive. More than 4 months after the abduction of Elizabeth Smart, the police and public had given up hope of finding her alive. But in October, Elizabeth's younger sister came forward with startling information.
It was about 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and Mary Catherine came in and said, "Dad, I think I know who it is. I think I know who it is." And I said, "Who?" And she said, "Emmanuel." And I thought to myself, I tried to go back in my mind, Emmanuel. Oh yes, that was this homeless preacher that had been here that the girls had seen for maybe 5 minutes. I went back into her room and I sat down and I said, "Now, Mary Catherine, tell me how this came to you." She opened up her Guinness World Book of Records and turned to this page where there was a very muscular woman. And she said, "I don't know, I was looking through here and all of a sudden it came to me."
And it's like, what? And I mean, Edward just was completely dumbfounded, and she explained the story of, Emmanuel. He was a straight-laced person that Lois had given this $5 to 7 months before and invited up to the house. He had worked with Edward most of the time on the roof, working on a skylight up there.
She met him after school for, a couple of minutes. How did she do that? I believe it was a revelation from God. I truly, truly believe that.
Edward immediately, called and went down to the police station, talked to Corey Lyman and told him about it, and they arranged, for an interview with Mary Catherine.
Okay, you said you met him on the street. Do you know what street that was?
The downtown is in that area. You know where a lot of homeless people go.
And when was the next time that you saw this man?
Oh, he came up to our house. We came in the front door, and I know he saw me, or we was going to our room.
Was Emmanuel the man who was in your bedroom?
I'm not quite sure. It might have been.
You're not quite sure, but it might have been?
Even though the eyewitness comes and says that she knows who it was who came in the house, it still didn't let Richard Reese off the hook. They said that they were looking for Emmanuel, and they told the Smart family, don't go public with this because we don't want to scare him off. To see how solidly stuck they were on Richard Reese is amazing. Amazing.
And it was just like, wait, this is the most important lead. Why are you discrediting it and trying to shut it down? I mean, for heaven's sakes, come on. This is the most important lead you guys have had. Nothing's happened with Reese. Give it up. You know, go with this.
Yeah, the family, you know, they had the only witness to the crime. They had the crime scene. I mean, you know, we had to work with them. I mean, they held the keys. They were the victims here. And they had the most information to help solve the case.
Elizabeth was told not to speak. She lived hand to mouth off the beggings of her white-robed abductor, a man she had met briefly many months previously. Her new life took her into a strange world that she had never known before.
I saw these three people standing on the doorstep. I just thought it was some people coming in costume to a party. He was saying that they needed to explore the spirits of this house. And so I invited them in. I said, come in.
I thought that the girl that was veiled was like 19 or 21, that age group.
She's tall. She's a good 5'6", 5'7", and she does not come across, I mean, all the posters and all the pictures that you ever saw in the news, it looked like a little girl. Emmanuel was very charismatic. He would had a way of kind of manipulating people. He had very intense eyes, and he would just keep going on. Testosterone, alcohol, and religious dogma at, you know, midnight is really not a good combo.
These people were chanting some kind of biblical curse or something, like they were saying, burn, burn.
The two women were kind of standing there on the sidelines, and I asked them, you know, are you okay? Do you need any help? You know, you don't have to go with this guy. And they pretty much ignored me and just followed after him and wandered away into the night.
Elizabeth's kidnapper, Emmanuel, was born Brian David Mitchell. The middle son in a strict Mormon family, Brian was severely punished, taking the brunt of his father's anger. Even as a child, Brian showed an excessive interest in sex.